Well, hi guys, so welcome to my channel, blog, or whatever you call it. And today I have some special guests with me. Can you guys introduce yourselves? And your name is?
My name is Okiki.
And you are?
I'm Tobias.
And you are?
I'm Fresca.
And you are?
Brittany.
Okay, like you guys know both of them. Okay, so today I'm gonna be talking about culture shock because I actually took an anthropology class where my teacher showed us clips of a group of people that never wore clothes. How did I feel? I was actually very shocked to see that people actually existed and they never wore clothes. And I actually learned not to be judgmental. Secondly, I want to talk about culture shock because I moved here 3 years ago. So I moved to Vancouver 3 years ago and I discovered that there are not a lot of black people, which actually made me feel a little bit terrified. And also, I was shocked by the fact that people asked me very weird questions like, oh, your hair, your natural hair, how do you take care of it? Why does your hair look different today? And now tell them, okay, my hair grew overnight. Like, come on, like, why would you think my hair, why would you actually think my hair looks different, you know? And then they'll also ask questions like, oh, your English is actually pretty good. You speak English? And I'm like, yo man, if I don't speak English, how did I talk to you? Yeah. And yeah, questions like that actually made me think twice, and I was like, okay, I feel like people actually are not aware of a lot of things. And thirdly, I decided to talk about culture shock because I came in contact with a Caucasian man that actually went to Nigeria. So he went to Nigeria and he went to help build Kanji Dam. So for those of you that do not know, Kanji Dam is in the northern part of Nigeria. So he went and helped build Kanji Dam, and he told us a story, and he told me that, you know what, a lot of people, and he made a statement saying you actually cannot define civilization. He said because he went to the stream in the village and he actually took a bowl and he went to fetch water. So when he tried drinking the water with the bowl, the villagers looked at him in a strange way, like, are you okay? And a farmer went there and he just plucked a leaf and actually wrapped it and used it to drink water. And at that point in time, he actually felt very uncivilized, and he was like, oh, so you can actually say there's a yardstick to measure civilization, you know what I mean? So now, today, I want you guys to talk about culture shock and your experience and how to deal with it. So who wants to go first?
I'll go last.
Growing up from Nigeria, then before I moved to England, I felt a little bit more comfortable in England compared to like when I moved here like a year ago. But like you said, you know, when I moved to Vancouver, I realized there are not a lot of black people here. But in England, it's different, right? Like in London, it's a very multicultural city. So I never really felt alone. But I still remember when I first moved to England, because I used to go to England regularly for holidays, for vacations and stuff. But then when I moved there for uni, like I was properly living there. It was not just like 2 weeks or a week or a month. There was a particular time I was going to the club with my friends and I was on cue, and then this girl saw me. She was like, I think she stepped on me, and then she looked at me. She's like, oh, sorry. And I was like, oh, it's okay. And she was like, oh, where are you from? I'm like, I'm from Nigeria. And she's like, oh, man, you speak so good English. And what are you doing here? And I'm like, oh, well, I'm here to study. And she couldn't comprehend it. Like, she was like, oh, you came here to study, and who's paying for your uni? And I'm like, my parents. And she's like, she couldn't comprehend like an African actually moving out of Africa and then coming to England, and your parents, you know, for our idea of Africa is completely different. And she was like, your English is, she was like so surprised. And I just realized sometimes people live in their own bubble, and you just have to educate them. And, yeah. That's what I have to say for now.
Tobias, how about you? What has your experience of culture shock been ever since you moved down here, or is there an experience you can relate to, or?
Growing up in a city, well, I'm Canadian born, so I'm from Toronto. So I would say Toronto's just like England, very multicultural. And for me, coming to Vancouver was a shock in terms of just like once again in England, like in Toronto, you see your people coming to Vancouver. It's kind of like I feel alone. Where are we?
Wait, you know,
Like this is crazy. And yeah, I've been here for like a year now, and just kind of adjusting. It's really hard. Like this is the first time ever in my life where I've like either visited or stayed in a place where like I can't identify anywhere. So I feel like, what am I doing here?
I feel conscious, like, you know.
Right,
I'm
you're
on the-
conscious of your color.
I'm on
Yeah.
the train, and like literally, I'm the only black person, and I'm like,
Literally.
I feel I've never felt so conscious of myself. Like, I've been in classes where like I'm the only black person, or like 2 or 3 black people, but like in a city where you just feel like, yo, it's so like when I see other black people on the road, it's become a thing. Like when they see me, they kind of like,
Yeah, you give a head
they
nod,
kind
of
of like nod and
course.
acknowledge the fact that
Yeah.
it's not a black person.
Yep. And to be honest, just to, I guess, jump off of that, like, that never happened to me initially coming here. And me not seeing any black people, when I did see a black person, I'm like, you know, like trying to make eye contact. A lot of them, to be honest, would either look straight ahead or look down and keep it pushing. And I was like, are they low key like racist or something? Like they don't see me? So it was a little frustrating, but adjusting.
I feel like some black people here find it difficult to identify with their own, you know what I mean? I remember there was a place I used to work and there was this black guy there. Like obviously he was a black guy and it was obvious there were the only black people there. So normally you actually acknowledge the fact that we're of the same color and we're a minority, so at least you should be more friendly. And like I went up to him, I was like, oh hey, how's it going? And he was just like,
Okay.
okay. Like, and then I asked him a question, and I was like, where are you from? And then he was like, I'm from Canada. And I was like, okay, if you don't want to, what's your background, your ethnicity? And then he was like, I'm from Canada. And I was like, you're doomed. No, you're doomed, but like, really, you don't want, and obviously he had an African last name, so that was why I was like, okay, you can trace your background, you know where you're from, you don't just want to relate to people that are from there. So yeah, how about you, Priska?
I feel like I can relate to everyone else here. Like, I feel like it's more of like an inferiority feeling, like you feel inferior because you're mainly like the only one, especially your color too. It's just very out there. So there's no way hiding that you're black, you know. So for me, the way I experienced culture shock actually was when I was young. I came here when I was like 8 years old. I didn't actually know it was culture shock. I just felt like, why did my parents move me to this country? And I was just so like, I was very outgoing like as a child, but like I kind of was like, I just went inward just a little bit because I was like, whoa, there was just so much that I didn't know. Like all I knew was black people, right? I didn't know there was other races. So, and like I had to learn like how my own race was supposed to behave actually. And then I had to learn how to, you know, treat people and how to be treated in a way, you know. So when people expected me to be all tough, you know, a tough black girl, I was like, no.
Right, the stereotype.
Yeah, the stereotype. Because I didn't live up to that stereotype as well, and I feel like that's what makes you feel inferior with culture shock, is because you're in a country and you don't really know, like that's not your culture, so you have to kind of learn the culture but also maintain your culture as well because you don't want to feel lost. So I feel like we're always fighting internally with ourselves, especially as immigrants or as someone who is even born in the country.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny to me that he felt that way because I always thought maybe if I was born here, I wouldn't.
You
really
feel differently, right?
Yeah. I always thought I wouldn't really feel inferior or something. And like you guys said, you always have to be conscious of yourself. Even like with me, with the whole accent thing as well. Like
Right,
when
true.
you're, especially when you're in class. Like sometimes I hold back because I didn't like, I don't want, because sometimes when I'm answering a question I get so passionate sometimes I'm like, okay, I don't want my accent to like, you know, to leak out. So I have to be always conscious sometimes, and it's not like I'm trying to make myself conscious, it's just like I'm just trying to, you know, I guess, fit in and not stand out way too much.
Or when they ask you to read in class.
Yeah,
Obviously,
exactly. Exactly, and the whole question of why do you speak English so properly is just, it's very ignorant as well. I find it very ignorant because it's like, first of all, Europeans, they colonized Africa, so you guys should know we had to speak something, you know. It's not like we just decided we wanted to speak English. What do you think?
Well, for me, I was born in Vancouver, so I really didn't have like much of an experience of a culture shock. So there's not many Black people around here. So basically raised like whitewashed. So like I don't really have like those kind of experiences or whatnot, but I do have some experiences of culture shock when I go traveling. For example, like Toronto. You know, I felt at home because like, you know, there's white people, let's stop, you know. And even like when I went to Vegas last month, I felt like more welcomed. But it's kind of funny because like being born here and whatnot, I really like see myself living in Vancouver because, you know, I always feel the need to be with like my Black community and whatnot.
Right.
There's not many Black people around here. But at the same time, I've met a lot of people who have like a lot of culture shock, like for you, for example. So, but like, you know, I always try my best to like, you know, accept them for who they are. Like their accent, I don't really judge them about the accent or like their culture, where they're coming from. I always like to learn more about the culture.
So like how do you guys advise people to deal with culture shock, or what would be the best way to deal with it? You know what I mean? Like when people, okay, so let me tell you guys a story. Oh my god, when I used to work at a particular store, like in this city, oh my god, I had people come at me, like literally come to my face and ask me stupid questions. There was a woman that walked up to me and she said, you know what? I feel so bad for Black girls because you guys use so many relaxers to relax your hair and it actually burns your scalp. And she's like, oh my god, like how do you guys wear weaves? Honestly, I was like, she was lucky I was at work though. Anyway, so, so like such kind of like annoying statements, like how do you deal with it? I had a customer call me an African bitch one time. You know, like, so how do you deal with culture shock? What's the best approach? You know what I mean? Also, I've had like so many experiences of racism and culture shock. I remember when I used to work at a job I loved, whenever my supervisor wanted to talk to me, she would bring another supervisor, two supervisors to talk to me because I'm a Black girl. But if she's talking to like my colleagues, she wouldn't do that. You know what I mean? Just because she doesn't want me to assume the stereotype of a Black woman, and you know, the crazy Black woman throwing stuff in her face.
Are you crazy?
So like, how do you deal with culture shock?
Sorry not to cut anybody off, but for
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
I'm still transitioning, but for the most part,
Right.
like what I've picked up and what I've learned is more so just you really have to know who you are and know yourself. Because out here, to me, if you don't know who you are, you could easily get lost and just lose like the essence of who you are.
Tobias, when you say know who you are, can you like shed more light on that?
Okay, a lot of people travel and I guess leave home to kind of find themselves. You know what I'm saying? Well, for me, I can kind of say I left Toronto just for change, but me coming for change kind of reinforced like who I really am, and it kind of, it added on to, I guess, the strength of Tobias, I guess, if that even makes sense. I don't know if it does, kind of, sort of.
I can kind of relate to what you're saying. Like, for me, I've lived in different countries. I grew up in Nigeria, then I moved to England, then I came here. But one thing I've always told myself, and one thing I realized about myself is the more I move away from home, the closer I get to home.
Exactly.
For me, I grew up being proud of who I am. I grew up in, I moved out. Like, I only moved because my parents wanted me to study abroad or whatever. So I had this sense of pride of being African and Nigerian. I never felt ashamed of who I am. But I understood the way the world works in terms of like, okay, there's racism and there's this, and the world is seeing it differently. I understood that. I was never like, you know, lost. I understood that concept. But I was very proud of who I am. So anytime I go out, I always want to, any slight opportunity I have, I always want to show people my culture. I want to wear my you know, my traditional clothes. I always want to,
Exactly.
you know, teach people a little bit about myself. I was never ashamed. But then when I moved, like for example, like what you said, you know, when you meet some other black people and let's say you hear the last name and you feel like, oh, I can kind of like tell that person is from Nigeria or this part of Africa, and you like want to connect with them because you get so excited. And it's happened to me before where like, you know, I see people and like clearly I know that their last name is Nigerian. And I go to them and I'm like, oh, what part of Nigeria are you from? And they go back to me and they're like, I'm not from, okay, they say I'm you know, I was born in London, I'm British. That's true. I cannot deny, like, I'm not trying to make them connect to something they don't connect with, because some of them have actually never been to Nigeria. So when they tell me, so it's possible, I understand they don't relate to that. But what I find disturbing though, is some of them actively want to disengage from being African.
Exactly.
Because that's why I find trouble. That's why I find trouble. It's not you. It's one thing not connecting with the culture because you've never been there. Like I get that. Like it's one. I understand that. But for you to actively, like no one wants to connect to it whatsoever because you find this. I don't know, because for some of them it's like they're ashamed to be African. So like you really have to, like you said, you have to know who you are. You have to be proud of it. An example that happened to me was like when I was in uni, I saw two Caucasian guys arguing about some questions, right? And I already did that. I knew the answer to the question, so I walked up to them and I'm like, oh, that's the answer, because I saw them arguing. And I said, that's the answer. And they looked at me. They couldn't comprehend the idea of a black person understanding something they don't understand. So they looked at me and they were like, and they ignored me and they continued leading themselves to the wrong answers. Like, and this is because like it deals with like, you know, a lot of them don't see a lot of people of color in power. You know, you go to university campuses, you go to like, you know, their lecturers are all white, they hardly see any black lecturers or whatever. They don't see black people in position of power. So when they don't see black people in position of power, the narrative is, you know, the whiter the better. We're better. So when they see you in the position, like the world is telling them, I'm supposed to be better than these people. And because they don't see black people in position of power, it kind of reinforces that narrative. So to some of them, it's like, okay, if I'm better than them, why should they get to be CEOs? Why should they get to be this and that? So I think the best way to just deal with it is, you know who you are. You try to educate people. You don't shut up when you see people being ignorant. Sometimes I think what have helped me a lot is I pick my moments. You know, I pick my moments. You have to choose your moments wisely, because sometimes you know they can just see you as this crazy person that's ranting or hit everybody and blah blah blah. But like, you just have to pick your moments. Sometimes I let things go, but most times the way I do it is I always pick, especially if I have a class presentation. When I have a class presentation or something, I always find a way of putting a message that will make people realize, okay, I think I'm a bit ignorant. Like, I think I'm in my own bubble. I always find a way of educating them about other culture, about my own culture, about what I'm proud. And when they see you as a black person not trying to fit into their own box, they begin to see you in a different light. They see you that, okay, this one is not somebody we can manipulate to fit our own, like, you know, our own standard or whatever. You don't have to fit anybody's standard. Just make sure you know who you are and you can, you know, speak for yourself and just, you know, let it go. That's what I think.
Okay, what I think.
Yeah.
So for me, I feel like I can relate and maybe understand sometimes why people will try and disengage themselves from being African. Just because, you know, like at a point in my life, I did not want to be associated as African just because of the negative, like the Western world has found a way to put a negative connotation to the word Africa. And we always seem to forget that Africa is a continent, it is not a country. And you know, one thing that happens in one part of Africa does not reflect every part of Africa, you know. And Africa has kind of been like the poster child of help around the world. Like we're always looked at as people who need help, you know. And I feel like we need to start taking back that power, you know. That's why like growing up, like just leaving high school, I started to own myself as an African, you know. I started to, like, I used to hate one of my names that, like, my parents gave me because it just sounded so African. Growing up in high school, nobody could pronounce my name. So I always had this, like, you know, hate towards, like, I was just always angry about the fact, but, like, I looked at myself, I'm like, why am I angry about, like, people not being able to pronounce my name?
Right.
Back in Africa, people were able to pronounce my name just perfectly. And if they can pronounce a Russian name, I'm sure they can pronounce Priska. You get what I'm saying? So I had to take back that power and own it with myself. And also, I feel like you have to be patient with others. Because people, especially with Africa, are so ignorant about what goes on in Africa, what happens. All we hear about Africa is poverty, corruption, and how everything is just so corrupt. Yes, there's corruption, yes, there's poverty, but that does not represent Africa as a whole. There's so much going on in Africa, there's so much development, there's so much, like, entrepreneurship, and, like, I feel like when we do face situations where people are so ignorant, it's up to us to be patient, up to us to take that power and, you know, tell them and educate them about what Africa is, what country we come from, because we all come from so many other countries.
Mm-hmm.
If we're here and we decide to, oh, yes, but my parents are from Nigeria, you know, but my parents are from Cameroon, you know, I was born here, but my parents, so what are you saying?
Sounds like
You know? No, I'm just saying, it's okay to say I was born here,
Yeah.
but my parents are from Nigeria, but are you trying to educate yourself where your parents came
That's the
from?
thing though, like when you grow up in like
Mhm.
Canada, you identify yourself like a Canadian.
Of course.
You
Here.
never have that chance to like
That's one thing I don't like that.
grow up where my parents came from, Canada,
Mhm.
right? Because like I feel like to like understand the culture of where your parents come from, you have to be in their culture.
Well, another thing is,
But the thing is like I said again, like I always love to learn about culture. I'm always like learning about my parents' culture, like in fashion, or like I'm always listening to Ghanaian music, straight up. But like you know, but the thing is like you have to be in that place to
Yeah.
learn about the culture.
well,
Fresh.
like Brittany, like I've known you for a while now, and I
Yeah.
feel like you know a lot about your culture. You
Yeah.
just don't know that you know a lot. Because like, I say this because like when I moved down like to Vancouver, I met Jocelyn, and then through Jocelyn I met Brittany,
Mhm.
and I was shocked at the extent we bonded. We bonded like we've always known each other. You know what I mean? So I was like I feel like you know more about your culture than you actually think you do.
Interesting.
I feel
Good to know.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with identifying as
As
Canadian.
Canadian,
There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. It's like if you've never been to that culture, you don't know. Anybody that faults you for not identifying with a culture you've never been or never lived is ignorant.
Mhm.
But the point is, like, when I say some people are actively trying to disengage,
Yeah.
what I mean is because there seems to be an hierarchy within the black community, and this is something that still breaks us down and still holds us back till today. When we realize that if we come together and unite, and when I mean hierarchy, what I mean is the hierarchy seems to be African American or Africans that live in the Western world, Caribbeans, and then Africa is the bottom list you can be.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right? So that seems to be the hierarchy.
Yeah.
So anytime anybody see an African, right, they're like, okay, this has happened to me. I've seen blacks that live in the Western world just because I come from Africa. They think they're better than me. No, you know, they think, you know, you're from Africa though. You know, I'm different to you. So like, when we still have that kind of mentality, we can't really push forward as a people. I think a lot of the time we just have to be patient with each other and realize that, okay, cultures are different. We might be black. We might all have the same, you know, color and all this, but we're different. We've been moved around different places, so we have different cultures, and we need to be accommodating of that. We need to be like, okay, tell me about yourself, and let me teach you one or two things about myself. But I think a lot of us we're not willing to learn. We just want to drag each other. Is it how I drag you to this end or you drag me to this end? So it's almost like some Africans. It's almost like you have to be African by force, but you cannot relate to that, or you have to be. I don't know what the word to use for that. You have to be, you know, a black person that grew up in the diaspora by force. So it's just like we just need to be accommodating of each other rather than trying to drag each other to either side of the spectrum. There's always middle ground. Just be willing to learn from each other.
That's true.
You're saying some good points, but I can't even argue with you. Well said. You're supposed to dropping some gems.
Okay. One last question. I know you guys basically talked about like moving here at a very young age and not losing your culture. So how can parents prevent kids from losing their culture? You know, like some kids, they move down here and then you ask them like, okay, so have you ever been to Nigeria? Or where are you from? That's like a very easy question that you should even know your tribe. And so people don't. Like seriously, you're like, where are you from? Oh, I'm Yoruba. You're not Yoruba, man. Like your name is Chike. Chike is not a Yoruba name. You know, like some people don't even know their tribe, like where they are from. So how can that be prevented?
Okay, this is actually a good question for me because the whole parent thing is like we have to understand like the mental state of our parents when they move here, right? So I feel like there's a lot of pressure on like immigrant African parents especially to like kind of get their kid to like maintain their culture but also integrate into this culture, which is sometimes I feel like it's not fair for them because like they get judged maybe a little bit too harsh. You have to understand like you are even coming here at an earlier age where you can grasp the culture a little bit faster. They've lived their life, their whole life, like maybe half of their life somewhere else. So it's a little bit harder for them to integrate here. And also, like, there's no like simple formula for getting a young kid to, you know, relate to the culture. Like, for example, in my family, it's not, me and my brother especially, we're twins, right? But I relate to my culture a lot more than my brother would. Like, he does not listen to Afro music. You know, he doesn't speak broken English, although he used to speak it. You know, it's just a personal preference. Like, the way I grew up, I was like, in my mind, like, it's, if I lose my culture, then I don't know who I am. Because if I go back home, I'm a foreigner back home. If I come here, I'm a foreigner here. So where does that leave me, you know? So I have to kind of integrate both cultures and see it as my home. Because I'm gonna go back home, but still, I forgot everything, you know? I still can't relate to some things. If I was there, I would have been able to relate to. So I feel like it was a way, it has to do with how you grew up, like from a young age. And I feel like it's harder for you to keep your culture if you came here so early. Because everything you're being taught here is Africa is this, Africa is that, so you try to disassociate yourself with that. I'm not blaming you for that, but like I feel like when you do get to college and you do open your eyes a little bit more, you know, you do learn about like other people's cultures, you try and start finding yourself, you try to find your own culture. And I don't want to say if it's a bad thing if you moved here as a child and then you don't associate with your culture. I don't want to say that's a bad thing because it's a personal thing. You know, some kids come here and they're so traumatized that they don't want to have to, you know, I don't know, deal with the other culture. They just want to integrate here and that's how they want to be. So it's a mental state of mind and you just have to accept that. But I feel like at home you can't really, because the food you eat, I mean, we're still going to eat fufu, you know. We're still going to eat egusi. So no matter how you try and say, oh, like, I don't want to relate to my culture, you're still gonna, you know, share some things about that culture that will always make you remember. So it's just a personal preference, to be honest. Like, I don't think the parents should be held accountable. The parents can try and, you know, they can try and counsel you as much as they can, for you to remember where they came from, because when you do remember where you come from, I feel like you're a lot more grateful that you had the opportunity, that your parents did take the time, you know, yeah, to come here, because they stopped their lives. Like, I cannot be, like, I'm so grateful for my parents. Like, if they never brought me, I have such a different perspective of the world. You know, that's why I find it, like, I grew up being so mad at, like, my parents for dragging me out of Africa, but I'm actually very grateful right now and, like, very happy that they did drag me out of there, because I'm so, like, I'm able to experience other people's culture. I'm able to understand other people's pain, and I'm able to relate more to other people. You know, it makes me want to travel. So I feel like with them, you know, you have to be really understanding with parents, and some parents, they have a different parenting style. You have to understand not every parent, they're like parents, like my parents were very strict back at home, but when they came here they relaxed a little bit, and like I got to know them, like I wasn't scared of them anymore.
Right.
You know, you relate to them as you're still not friends with them. That's the thing with African parents. You're still not friends with them, but you can like tell them a little bit more about yourself than if you were back home. It's strictly respect, you know, strictly you're the parent, you're the child, and let's leave it at that, you know. So I feel like it depends on the parenting style and the kid's personal choice. Yeah. Anybody have anything to that?
Regarding, you asked regarding like what parents should do. I think that's all the more reason when you're talking about separating. I'm no disrespect, I don't take nothing from nobody's parents. Parents have to do what they have to do for their kids, to make sure their kids are, you know, aligned and straight. But at the end of the day, I think it's important for parents, whatever culture, Caribbean, African, whatever, I think it's important for the foundation starts at home.
Exactly.
So I feel like if the child is not brought up with certain, whether it be beliefs or cultural aspects of whatever culture it is, I feel like that's when a kid grows up and just like lives and doesn't really. When you know who you are, I feel like it's easier for you to thoroughly and fully live out your full potential. And growing up not knowing who you are or disconnected or angry, you know what I'm saying? Like, this potential, I think it's a lot easier to fail. So I see that foundation starting at home, it's important for you to, you know, expose your child to whatever cultural, like obviously positive cultural aspects, but anything cultural, I think it's super important. Like life and death.
And like with parents, like I can understand like where parents are coming from. Like sometimes it's tough for parents. Some parents moved here literally to just make life better for themselves, and as far as they're concerned, as long as the kids are here and going to school and doing well, that's all they care about. And I've seen it. Some kids that grew up here, some of them are still traumatized and upset because they're dealing with so many things, and they know how their parents are struggling here. So some of them are thinking, if Africa was so good, my parents won't have to go through this shit. So they're upset. So it might not, they're dealing with it in a different way. They're upset, but they don't know how, they don't really know what it is. But they're like, if Africa was such a great continent, why are my parents having to work 7 shifts or whatever to be able to put me through school or to be able to put food on our table, right? So I can understand why they have really tough time connecting with Africa, because they're like, you failed me. You feel me? Like, you failed us, right? Because we are struggling here. We wouldn't have to do that if Africa was so great. So I don't blame people for like not wanting to integrate or whatever, because it's like, yes, this is real shit happening with people. But at the end of the day, I always say this, we are the one that will solve the problem of Africa as Africans. The minute we realize that, okay, yes, Africa might not be what we want it to be, but Africa is ours. We have to own it. Whether it's good, whether it's bad, it has to be up to us to be like, yo, we have to fix this. And nobody's going to fix that for us. And I'm a huge believer in, as long as Africa is still what Africa is today, no black person will ever really get the respect they deserve.